Hello everyone, it's time to do another deck profile, this time on set 13 Drajeweled, or simply called Drajeweled Ignis, the evolved form of Drajeweled that was never shown in the anime despite a player actually playing the deck. All because the character's in a coma. But anyway, Drajeweled has been an awesome deck ever since it came out. I love the concept of Drajeweled because it uses soul manipulation with grades, and I just love that. And not only that, it looks awesome on top of it, being a jewel dragon. That's why I just love Drajeweled. But anyway, from the disappointment of set 10, which was the last big wave of support, we finally got another new set of Drajeweled support that kind of completely changes the whole entire deck once again. Drajeweled Mask was a okay card. It wasn't too bad, but there was one key factor that held it back, and it's the fact that Drajeweled already had an issue with this one specific cost ever since it came out, and it was Counterblast. Even with the countercharger, it was still not enough. But now with this new Drajeweled Ignis, let's just say there's no counterblast cost, and it just made this deck so much better because of it. And look at Drajeweled Ignis, it just looks cool. I do find it funny that this is the one evolved boss unit that did not get shown in the anime. And it was kind of funny that they actually decided to make a new form of Drajeweled despite the character's condition. Would have been interesting if they actually decided to show it. I wonder where would the show would have been. I would probably say it was meant to be a what if scenario, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But other than that, I just have to say Drajeweled is very awesome. The playstyle of the deck is basically soul blasting different grades from soul, meaning the whole deck revolves around you needing a balance of specific grades because each grade represents one gem. And as you can tell from Drajeweled Ignis is a grade 4, meaning that there's going to be a new gem of Drajeweled that also mean his evolution. In Drajeweled Ignis's case, you can tell his body is red, and the Ignis represents the flame, souls of the 4 flames. I'll have to assume the 5th flame is Drajeweled Ignis, and I kind of like the concept of that. And that's one of the reasons why I built the deck, because it's also a dragon. But other than that, let's just begin with the deck profile, with of course starting with the ride deck. So of course, being Jewel Dragon theme, Julius Draco Kid, we go to the Jewel Core Dragon, which has the ride deck skill of when the grade 2 Jewel Neil rides on top of it, you move it to rear guard. And then it has the second skill when it attacks plus 5k. At the end of the battle, you put its soul and it's mandatory. I mean, that second skill is generic, so you can actually use that in many different decks, but you really just use it for early game beatdown. In which we go to Jewel Neil, where when an attack hits, you can soul charge 1, but the second skill is the main part, where when a Drajeweled rides on top of it, soul charge 1, then if you have at least 3 cards with different grades in soul, you draw a card. Keep in mind with the different grades part, because that's the main playstyle of Drajeweled. Hence, I already said, each gem represents a grade, and soul blasting 4 different grades is going to be the key point. By the time you ride your grade 3, you already have 3 different grades in soul. Your grade 1 goes back to soul, this is itself will be in soul, and plus the grade 0. So that draw is pretty much just guaranteed. And it's just nice that you get an extra soul charge on top of it, adding some little extra consistency. In which we go to Mahoyu Drajeweled, which has the first skill of Counterblast 1, which is once per turn, you can soul charge 2. If they were different grades, you draw a card. Sure, the little bit of a RNG for the extra plus, but what matters is that you get the extra soul, which is also very nice, and add some extra consistency here. But the second skill is the main one, where when it attacks the Vanguard, you can soul blast 4 cards with different grades. Keep this one in mind, that's why the different grades is going to be very important. Choose one of your opponent's Vanguard, change their power to 1. And then, if your opponent's Vanguard is greater or greater, crit plus 1. So yeah, that's basically very aggressive, especially it could actually overturn your opponent's triggers. So if your opponent gets a trigger before this attacks, you basically just nullify their trigger and basically just increase your power, kind of. Except that you're decreasing your opponent's power, which of course will increase your opponent's shield usage, which is of course also pretty good. The only thing is, of course, the decrease power doesn't really matter depending on scenario. If your focus is on attacking your opponent's Vanguard, then that little decreased power doesn't really matter if it's increase or decrease. But in some cases, it does matter depending where you're attacking, because sometimes you're attacking the rear guard. Keep in mind, the power is 1, so if you do have a 10k rear guard, it does make a little difference if your opponent gets a trigger after that. So just keep that in mind. But overall, it's just pretty decent to basically overturn your opponent's trigger, and quite menacing, especially because of the extra crit. And that's actually the main part. The extra crit makes it menacing. So that's it for the ride deck. To the main deck, first off, we're evolving him to Drajeweled Ignis, which is a grade 4, meaning triple drive. First off, you can only ride it on top of Drajeweled. Keep that one in mind, because otherwise some people will forget, and being a grade 4, there's no persona ride, so meaning there is many occasions where there's no point of riding on top of them. But the first skill is definitely what makes this card into improvement compared to Drajeweled Mask, because this part is free. At the beginning of your battle phase, choose 2 cards from your drop zone and put them to soul. And then, you have 4 more cards with different grades, your whole front row gets those 15k power. Not only that you get to choice soul charge, you give your whole front row plus extra more power. Yeah, that's gonna be devastating, especially when original Drajewel does not get power, Drajeweled Mask doesn't get power, and there's a condition for Drajeweled Mask to put 2 cards in soul. Sure, that one gives you a crit, but he himself already gets himself a crit with the next skill, where, when this card attacks, you can soul blast 5 cards with different grades. The key point here is that you can also use the Drajeweled from your Soul Blast as any grade of your wish from 0 to 4. So basically, you can Soul Blast a Drajeweled with 4 different grades. So just keep this one in mind. So when this card attacks, you can pay that cost and then retire all your opponent's back row rear guards and choose all your opponent's front row units, and their power goes to 0, and this card gets crit +1. So not only that this new Drajeweled gives a huge power buff, it also drains their power to 0, which makes a huge difference on guarding value. Because remember the 10k to 1 power, if your opponent gets a trigger, that 1 extra power actually becomes a defensive value. Now if they go to 0 and you have a 10k rear guard, now that makes a difference. Because if they get a trigger, it's still 10k, and it still makes a difference right there. So keep that one in mind. Another thing is that it does it to your opponent's whole entire front row, meaning that if your opponent has defensive triggers on their Vanguard, you can still attack the rear guard. So that's another key thing, and the extra crit is just really good overall. The another key thing is soul blasting Drajeweled to be treated as any other grade. That's of course going to be very helpful because you need to soul blast 5 cards with different grades, and using Drajeweled as one of the different grades is just very helpful overall. And this new Drajeweled Ignis ignites your whole front row with extra power, which is of course going to be very nasty. And choice soul charging on top of it every single turn for free. Yeah, this card is just really good, and of course it's going to be a big menace. Now, the only downside compared to this and Drajeweled Mask is that Drajeweled Mask gets to choose which of your opponent's rear guards to retire, while this one just only lets you retire back row. That's the only downside in the comparison of the two. But other than that, I say it's worth the trade-off, and this is just awesome. And if you guys are wondering what's the 5th lane, because every grade represents a gem on its artwork, and as you can see, 4 gems, I say the Ignis, his body, will be the 5th grade, hence the Soul Blast of Drajeweled. So that's it for the new Drajeweled. To the new grade 3, Noctursi, which is the new generic card for set 13, where when you discard it for the ride deck for a grade 3 or for stride, you draw a card, which is fine, but the main part is the first skill, where when placed on rearguard or guardian, and depending on scenario, you can reveal a grade 4 from hand, and your Vanguard is a grade 4, or the reveal card is a grade 4. Drajeweled Ignis is grade 4. On rearguard, you can counterblast 1 to draw a card, and then choose 2 cards from your drop zone to put to soul. So it's just another way to put more cards to soul, and it's just choice soul charging is just really good and more plussy. On Guardian, it's just a 15k shield. It's just overall really good and a huge improvement to many things, and it's generic too. Just so many uses for this card, and it's not even a Drajeweled card. You can use this for your stride decks, maybe even other decks that just run grade 4s, and this is one of them. And now to the grade 2s, back to 4 copies of Rockador. So when it attacks your opponent's grade 3 or greater, gets plus 10k, and then when you soul blast 4 more cards through your Vanguard's ability, and your opponent's Vanguard is at least grade 3, you can counterblast 1 to stand this card, so it's just multi-attack, and you're going to do it through Drajeweled. And then to the new grade 2, we run the new Zygon, which has the skill when placed you can soul charge 1, and then after that you can choose a grade 4 from your hand to reveal it. If your Vanguard is grade 4 or the reveal card is grade 4, you can call a card from your soul, which is of course going to be very helpful because of course it just reveals your field, and at the end of the turn you put that card back in soul, which can sometimes be outdone by other skills, but overall it's pretty decent because it gets you pluses, and sometimes you just really need the stuff from the soul. And then second skill, your Vanguard's Drajeweled, it gets the boost ability. 10k boost as well, which actually makes a huge difference, especially when your opponent's Vanguard is 0. It's just overall just decent to get you some pluses, and this free soul charge, which will guarantee you something. And then I run 2 Empusa. I see people not run this because of a new specific grade 1, but I actually kind of like this because on the front row rear guard, when you soul blast 4 more cards with different grades, if you did not stand a card this turn, you can stand it, and then at the end of the turn, you play this ability, retire this unit, choose a grade 2 or greater unit from your soul to put it to your hand. The main reason why I run this is for the second part. It's because you can return a grade 2 or greater from your hand, and sometimes it could even be your Drajeweled Ignis that you actually want in your hand, because yeah, sometimes you can just accidentally soul charge it and you just don't have it. So it's just another way to get you with the new Drajeweled. And also even the grade 3s. Generic grade 3 is just really good to also put back to your hand, and you have a bunch of good grade 2s, so that's why I just still run this at 2 of. It's not necessary, but I just like it. And now to the new grade 1s. So first off, we start off with Varpula, which has the skill when you soul blast 4 or more cards with the cost of your ability of your Vanguard. You can put this to soul, draw a card, then choose a grade 4 from your hand to reveal, or if your Vanguard is grade 4 Drajeweled, choose one of your rear guards. If you did not stand during this turn, you can stand it. Keep in mind, these, if you did not stand in the turn, means that you have to choose one of your rear guards to stand first before you do the Rocket Door. So that's a way to do the 5 attacks. Imbusa was one way, so you stand the Imbusa first and then Rocket Door ability to restand. This is basically the budget version of Imbusa, but except that this goes to soul and lets you draw another card, which is going to be very helpful. And also just the ability to let you get the universal restand on any unit is also very nice if you do not have Imbusa. And then we get another new Drajeweled card, which is only for Drajeweled Ignis basically. Herd/Draco Kid, which has the skill when placed on rear guard, you can count as 1, look at top 7 cards of your deck for 1 grade 4 Drajeweled from among them, and put it in your hand. If you did not reveal a grade 4, choose a grade 4 from your hand to reveal, or if your Vanguard is a grade 4 Drajeweled, you can draw a card. So basically it lets you search for Drajeweled Ignis, but if you decide to miss on purpose, or if you just miss overall, and you already have your grade 4, it just basically lets you draw a card. Overall, it's just decent. It just lets you search for your main grade 4, but like I said, sometimes you might accidentally soul charge that grade 4, so that's why I still run Imbusa. Sometimes you'll miss, and sometimes you just can't get abilities off because you cannot get that counterblast back. Just keep that one in mind, because if you miss, you actually miss. And then finally, for PGs, yes, they have to be PGs because Elemental Sanctitude doesn't work in this deck. And then the Overtrigger, 8 crits, 3 draws, 4 bean heals. So that's it for my new Drajeweled Ignis deck for set 13. What do you guys think of it? And how do you like this compared to Mask? I like this way better than Mask. And 2, it's a grade 4, and I'm glad that they brought back a grade 4 evolution compared to all the other evolutions. At least everyone else has a unique evolution, so I guess we could actually cut some slack here, but I really want grade 4 evolutions again. And I'm glad that they did something with Drajeweled, because I was nearly afraid that they would do nothing with Drajeweled considering the character's condition. And I was very surprised when they decided to reveal Drajeweled Ignis. And overall, I'm just really happy that they did, because I love Drajeweled. Drajeweled is awesome, and there's really not much to say about it. But other than that, what other cards would you guys recommend? And especially the 50 cards, you can probably just add some new cards or some extra cards that you were originally not running into the deck. But other than that, it's just a fun deck, and I've been liking the deck overall. It's been kicking ass. But other than that, that's it for this, and see you all next time.